Hi everyone, welcome to the Psalm 40 Project. I'm Jonah, and joining me today is Reverend Kristy Manion. Welcome to the Psalm 40 Project.
Thanks, it's great to be with you today.
So as I was kind of thinking about this interview, I realized that I probably know the least about your story than anybody else on staff, and I find that kind of strange because how closely we work on certain projects.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to do this interview because honestly, I'm going to be learning just like everybody else.
Great. I'm looking forward to it too.
Start walking us through what your journey has been. You know, we're kind of going from wherever you feel that God's calling started up to the present. So
yeah.
where did you sense God's call first?
Yeah. I think call is always best understood backwards.
Okay.
So I wouldn't have said this at the time, but I think there are clues in my childhood of ways that God had put me together and experiences that He'd allowed me to have that, 15, 20 years later, you look back and you go, already back there, God, you had your hand
Hindsight's a little
on
bit
my
nice
life
to figure that out.
Yes. So I wouldn't have said this at the time, but I would say looking back now that as a kid, I was kind of a strange kid and did have a sincere and deep faith as a pretty young person. One thing that I think of is when my dad lost his job, I was in high school. And our family needed to kind of figure that out. He was the primary income provider. And my parents, really uncharacteristically for them, sensed that a move to Michigan from a lifetime in Colorado was maybe in order. And they were going to try a new business together, my mom and dad were. And I just remember at that time, the words from the book of Joshua, be strong and courageous because the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. I wrote that on cards and gave that to the people in my family and sensed that this was sort of a verse that we wanted to claim for ourselves as we went through this new process, which was unsettling for my parents and to some degree for me too. I was a senior in high school.
Oh, yeah, that's a rough transition.
At the time. Yeah. So those kinds of experiences. And I was a kid who started, my elementary school work was in the Christian school in Denver. And then middle school and high school were in public school. Okay. In part that was financial. Also in part it was because my parents, my mom especially, sensed that my outlook towards people who were sort of outside the fold, outside the flock of faith, were maybe a little scary for me. And she wanted me to embrace and live in an environment where I could see that Jesus was there too. Okay. So kind of from this young time in my life, learning about people who were not just exactly like me, although there were many people in my public school who were like me. Yes. And many people who knew and loved Jesus there just as I did, and who had a great group of friends from school that we met for Bible study on Friday mornings at the local bagel house because we wanted to. And
those are kind of stories you don't hear about public school in these kind of circles.
Yeah, so that was a part of my framework. Now, church was still really important. My mom was not ordained, but was on our church staff. So I grew up being a church rat, kind of, and learned about service and participation in church life from the time I was just tiny. There were things that I could do as a young person to participate in the life of the church. I think probably 11 or 12 years old, there I was serving snacks to the younger classes at night church or different things like that they just wanted kids to be involved and kind of expected that kids had something to contribute. So there wasn't ever a time in my growing up that I didn't think I had a place or a purpose or a role kind of in my church.
Yeah, that does seem very shaping for you, especially in the role that you have here at the church.
Yeah.
And some of the conversations you and I have had.
Yeah.
It's all kind of, so that's really interesting to me that you can look back and see that in yourself. But how did you start to move into sort of this role, this calling that you have? Because not only are you a minister here, but you also have chaplain experience that many people don't know about. So that kind of also came about as well. So kind of start walking us from high school into college, would you?
Sure. So in high school, if you had told me, hey, look out 15 years from now or whatever, you're going to be serving in a church, you're going to be preaching, you're going to be trying to help small groups flourish and grow, you're going to be trying to help people take their next step toward Jesus wherever they are in their life, that would have been very surprising.
Okay.
I was the kid in speech classes that just wanted to cower and run for the door. And so really in college, I went to Calvin College. That was a clear fit when I visited. I was thinking about Calvin or Azusa Pacific in California.
I almost went to Azusa Pacific.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I visited there. It was great. It
was
good,
it?
It was a good spot.
It was California.
It's California.
I ended up in Michigan. How did that happen? Calvin was great. It was a wonderful place for me to learn and grow, and I was an English and religion double major there.
Why did you pick up religion at that point?
Why did I pick up religion at that point? I really had an interest in it. I liked theology. I wanted to understand the Bible better. Although I would say that those two majors together really were instrumental in helping my faith to continue growing in college. The religion department really viewed itself at that time as an academic place, and there is certainly a place for academic religious studies. But I think I went in with my expectation was more that this would help me grow more in my knowledge of God and of myself. And there were certainly aspects of that happened there, but that also happened in my English classes. So English and religion, double major, thought, I think I'd really like to go into Christian publishing.
Oh, okay.
I think writing and working at a place like a Baker Book House or a Zondervan or something locally here, working in editing or something like that might be the right fit. So I had an internship in that during college, and I really, really liked it. And I knocked on the door of Zondervan following my internship there and tried to get a job there, and the doors all closed. And about that time, just after I graduated, I got married to Josh. Right 4 weeks after we walked across the stage and got our diplomas. We were at our wedding. And he was looking for work, so we were both kind of working this out together. He had interviews in Chicago and Lansing. 2 interviews in Chicago, 1 interview in Lansing. We thought, surely we're going to Chicago. We'll just see what happens. And the door opened here in Lansing for him. So we lived between Lansing and Grand Rapids in a little Portland, right off the highway. And I ended up getting a job at Calvin College in the housing department. I had worked there as a student worker and knew a lot of the staff. So anyway,
sort of just something to kind of pay
the
bills.
I needed a job, and many of my former professors were like, "Yes, there's a gainfully employed English major. This is very, very good news. We don't even mind what you're doing. We just are happy that you have a job."
Glad you have a job.
Which I think, truthfully, my dad thought, "Why are you majoring in English? What are you going to do with that?" But lots of communication skills that were gained there, and that was important in my job there. So, started working in that office work at 22 and had people around me who knew me well, not least my mom, who said, "Man, you need to think about either graduate school or seminary."